Okie dokie. Come on. Son, I'd like you to step away from this vector and get into a different coordinate pronto.
Good morning, afternoon, or night, my moth friends. Today I will be addressing a very serious topic to moths and discrimination against moths. So, you may know that there is only a butterfly emoji, no moth emoji. And this is a very serious topic to moths. If we have a moth emoji, moths and moth fans alike will feel much better and will not be have taken a step closer to not be discriminated against. Butterflies get all the love, and I will now show some moth pictures on screen to show you just how cute moths can really be. Please don't be afraid of moths like they're just some bug, but think that butterflies are pretty. They get a lot of the attention, and it's really important to us moths that we will get as much as the love that moths and butterflies and everyone has. It is very important to all insects alike. I will put a link in the description for you to sign a petition about adding a moth emoji to get one step closer to moth love throughout the world. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. It's good to see you guys. It's great. It's actually it's the larval form, the caterpillar that's going to chew up your clothes, not the moths themselves. The mothballs keep the moths themselves from laying their eggs in your closet. That's the reason for mothball. And it's only one species of, I think it's only one species of moth that actually use human clothes. I may be mistaken, it might be a whole genus, but most moths are not eating clothes. They just aren't. So most moths, butterflies are moths. I mean, that kid that at the beginning there, I don't know if it's a he or she. I found that video incidentally, and I thought it was freaking adorable to ask for a moth emoji. So I thought I would share it and drop their little campaign link in the description down below, just because I thought they were cute. I'll probably continue that on the rotation. Yeah, hummingbird moths are cute. They call them a hawk moth too. Excuse me, because you when they're fluttering, it's really hard to distinguish them at first, whether it's a hummingbird or a moth or an insect of some kind. When I had my own property, I had lots of flower gardens and stuff. I've since moved, but I would like to get back into doing some flowers again. So I just don't know where my feet are gonna land. I'm thinking about moving out west. Just gonna come crash with Uncle Beck out there. How's that sound? Let me say hi to everybody. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Osiris, Sandy. Oh, Beck is here, and we have our dying son, Kira. Godless Granny, I was just watching, she did this funny video responding to this guy trying to do Ray Comfort on an AI, and she kind of does like an attorney role for the AI, not knowing what it's saying. It's funny. I still have like 3 or 4 minutes left on it, but I had to come in here and do this. So I will go back and revisit the end on it. But who else we got? Native Atheist. Yeah, One Ring. Good morning. Good morning. Tsunami. Yes. Deep Arcs and Captive Desk. Good morning, everybody. Check out my Mothman shirt. It says, "Believe me." I'm cute. And Mothman. Mothman is adorable. So I'm there. I'm here for it. Love Mothman. And now, all you moth haters out there, Mothman's gonna come visit you tonight. You're going to have one of those hypnopompic dreams where all your brain chemistry goes wonky. And Mothman is going to come down your chimney. Yep, that's how he do. That's how Mothman do. So, a few things this in the coming weeks before we move on. All right, so the Breeze Bestiary channel, that is currently in stasis right now. I did intend to release January content for it, but HiveSci really kind of started getting some traction with some folks who wanted to interact with me. So I will be on a few different channels in the coming weeks. I'll just give you this week. For this week, I'm on coming this week on the 20th. I am on Skeptic Haven, and we're going to be talking about elephants, evolution of elephants. I'm also going to pull out some of my ecology rules to go over. We're going to talk about like Foster's rule and stuff. It'll be fun. We're going to talk about Cyclopses too, obviously, because you can have me on without bringing in some kind of monster. It's just my way. Mothman is the sleep paralysis demon that I can control. There's other ones too, but the only one that I can send after you is Mothman. I think that Junk Shop's sleep paralysis attack demon has chicken legs, I believe. And Beck's maybe a small furry man. We don't know. We don't know because they're demons. We don't know until they descend upon us what form they're going to take. When I was suffering my sleep paralysis, the one that would come visit me was a hobbly little old woman with cousin-it-like hair, kind of like lots of hair. You couldn't make out anything else, but it was hairy and breathed heavy and hobbled. Yeah, and it would like hobble to the side of the bed real quick, and I'd wake up and it wouldn't be there anymore. It would be in the corner again, and then I would just be frozen because I had sleep paralysis, and then it would when I would lose my focus on it or whatever, that's when I'd hear its footsteps running up to the bed real quick. It was creepy. Sometimes it'd go on for, I don't know, it always felt like hours and hours, but it's probably really only maybe 10 minutes of laying there trying to wake my body up, wake myself up. But yeah. Well, so Mothman, as you can see, because he's right above my head, I need to take my Christmas decorations down off that. You guys are still decorated for Christmas. Get that stuff off. There you go. I should have wore some New Year's hats or something. But, yeah, Mothman is like, I don't know, Mothman's the mascot of CryptoCorner, I guess you could say. So, speaking of CryptoCorner, we got a fun one for today. Are you guys ready for CryptoCorner? It's going to be weird. This is probably a topic that maybe some of you may have heard about, but only tangentially, because when it comes to... Oh, I didn't do that right. Let me try that again. All right, so we are going to move over to CryptoCorner, and I'll see you guys over there, because when it comes to cryptids, this one's a doozy. Hello and welcome to CryptoCorner. Every Friday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, we launch this little segment here, and you all can hang out with me, and we go over what cryptic creatures are creeping around. Well, this one's a creature anyway. It's not always a creature. Sometimes it's a place. Sometimes it's a planet. So you never know. Ancient aliens from to ghost to UFOs, Bigfoot, psychic powers, time travel. We cover it all here in Cryptic Corner. Anything that's weird and unexplained. And yes, I was just talking about sleep paralysis a little bit earlier. Now today's episode is not going to be connected to sleep paralysis in any way, which is kind of wild, but I think that judging by the engagement that we're getting out there in the side chat, it sounds like we might need to do a Cryptic Corner on sleep paralysis demons. And that's definitely within the wheelhouse because, excuse me, because an argument could be made that a sleep paralysis demon could be subject to tulpomancy, potentially, which we talked about before on Cryptic Corner, and also tangentially maybe related to the concept of machine elves, which we also covered recently. So if you are interested in tulpomancy or machine elves, those are two, I don't know, what do you guys want to call them? We need to start categorizing our cryptics, right? So we'll call those brain demons. Somebody take the minutes from the meeting today, and we're going to call those, or not brain demons, mind monsters. Mind monsters. I love it. Mind monsters. So we got tulpas, machine elves, and then we'll add sleep paralysis demons when we cover that. And I might even do that next week. I think I had something else planned, but I will compare and contrast. And if it's not seasonal, I can push it back. Oh, I smeared my makeup on my coffee cup. Dang it. I don't usually wear lipstick on the show, but I was doing the dark eyeshadow, so I'm like, you know what? I'm wearing dark eyeshadow. I need something to make my lips pop, and then a coffee cup. Yep. You can see where it's smeared. Oh, well, the show will go on. I'll just look, I just got done making out with somebody. I haven't made out with somebody in a little bit, so we'll just pretend. Yeah, sleep paralysis demons, the hag. Definitely something worth covering. We're going to do it. But some of these creatures, of course, you could all put up, all of them are mind monsters, but even within the context of sleep paralysis demons, machine elves, and tulpas, they are in-world, canonically mind monsters, so I think they get a pass for having that title. But again, this is not something that's going to be related to today's topic, so do come back if you'd like to dive into that. I definitely think that's worth some sleuthing. What do you guys? If you guys are in for it, I'm definitely in for it. So today's creature, because it is a creature for today, is I don't know. I say it's something special. It's well, here's where it starts. Oh, I shouldn't say where it starts, but this is because there's, of course, with any North American cryptid, right? With any unknown animal in North America, there's always like lore that they will attach to it from First Nation and Native peoples, right? It's just how people are. And this one's no different. This is the shoot, I didn't mean for it to be right over its face here. Hold on. Guess I'll reel that back in for this one. There we go. All right, this is the Ringodocus specimen. You might look at this thing and think, what the heck is that? Is that some kind of dog? Is that a hyena? And you'd be correct to make that kind of a judgment based on this specimen and this image of it. And the thing about this was that they taxidermied this critter, and then the taxidermied specimen was lost. But this is basically the furthest back that I was able to trace a proper lineage of lore for the American hyena. Anything prior to this, anything prior to American hyena lore, American hyena is the name of the cryptid we're looking at tonight, but it's got a few different names depending on where and when you want to apply that. And now most people will connect this sucker to the Shunka Warakin, which is an Iowa creature that would carry off dogs, which, if you look into the lore of it, does come across more as it's hard to explain what the like a wolf, I guess, but not like noble. Like, you know, you most of the time when you see people predicting how the wolves are in native lore, they'll act like the Native Americans were, like presenting them as this majestic, noble creature, when they just they just were part of the environment and just played a role. But the role that the Shunka Warakin played is that it carried off people's dogs. So it may just be a word for a rogue wolf that does, or a lone wolf, maybe one that was rejected or ejected from a pack, or ousted for whatever, and or even generally wolves take care of their wounded and sick, but there are lone wolves out there. It is a thing that happens, and they're not always the healthiest and most efficient hunters of their species due to their solitary status. They will take advantage of livestock more. When a wolf's lone, it will go after livestock and dogs. So, and they didn't have like sheep and stuff. The Native Americans didn't, but they did have dogs, and the wolves would carry them off. But that's what this creature was alleged to be, was this native lore about a creature that carried off dogs. So the name they gave this specimen, however, was Ringodocus, which is a little bit, I don't know, silly, I guess. It's just a weird frontier name, like they had lots of weird frontier names. This could even be put in that category, like fearsome frontier creatures, because it's like a one-of-a-kind specimen with jackalopes and things like that. Yeah, like one-of-a-kind, weird alleged Native Americans. There was also like monopods that hopped around on one leg and things like that. This isn't the weirdest of these creatures. Hoop snakes, the snakes that bite their tail and make a ring and then roll. Which would be an amazing feat of evolution. It would. I would love if hoop snakes existed, but that's just not something that biology has given us just yet. We do have armadillos, though. They roll into balls, and we have isopods. They roll into cute little roly-poly balls. Yeah. So this is a specimen that was shot in Montana. Let me read here. Attestations. According to some accounts, explorer William Clark, not the one from well, maybe it is the one from, holy crap, maybe it is William Clark from Lewis and Clark. I thought it was, they were talking about who shot this creature, when it's like William Clark, maybe it's a common name, but they're going back a little bit further. So let's read here. According to some accounts, explorer William Clark claimed to have discovered rock art in the Rocky Mountains depicting a giant wolf or giant dog wolf of ferocious appearance and enormous size. A curling shaggy mane was represented and extended down the back of the animal. In one instance, it was pictured burying a young deer in its jaws, illustrative of its size and strength. In 1995, Lance Foster told Lauren Coleman that we had a strange animal called Shunka Warakan that snuck into camps at night and stole dogs. It was said to look something like a hyena and cried like a person when they killed it. Its skin was said to be kept by someone still. So there's somebody still has a skin of one of these alleged creatures, but I do think that this is the name literally just means the creature that carries off dogs. I'm not a folklorist, definitely not a Native American folklorist, but you cannot separate this creature, this mythological creature or real creature, whichever, from the American hyena lore when it's post hoc added on to that. So there's no real connection between Shunka Warakan at all, as far as I can tell. If someone else has details where there was a myth that was told, like a story that was told that describes this creature in any way that makes it so that it could not be a lone wolf that has developed the habit of stealing domestic animals, present it to me. I would love to read that legend, but I was not able to find anything in all my years of looking into this, because this is like I always say this with every cryptid we have on here, this is one of my favorite cryptids. But this really is, mostly because hyenas are my favorite. Now, there's things about this that are very unhyena-like. Where to start? I don't know. But let me see here. Physical evidence. Okay, here's the Ringodocus specimen. Okay. Sorry, I was just reading the general hyena part. And well known. Hold on, I need to clear my throat before I start reading this and take a drink. Give me just a second. Hopefully that was all right. A well-known taxiderm, which has often been connected with the Shunka Warakan and American hyena, is the Ringodocus, which was long thought to be lost until it was rediscovered in 2007 with Mark A. Hall, who first referred Lauren Coleman to the Ringodocus, while Lance Foster independently discovered another account of the specimen, which he connected to the Shunka Warakan, a cryptid which Foster had originally brought to cryptozoological attention. As of July 2019, the specimen has never been formally examined. The Ringodocus was shot in 1886 by the grandfather of zoologist Ross Hutchins, who had recently settled in the Madison River Valley of Lower Montana. One morning, Israel Hutchins was aroused by the barking of the dogs. He discovered that a wolf-like beast of dark color was chasing my grandmother's geese. He fired his gun at the animal but missed. It ran off down the river, but several mornings later, it was seen again at about dawn. It was seen several more times at the home ranch as well as other ranches 10 or 15 miles down the valley. Whatever it was a great traveler. One morning in late January, my grandfather was alerted by the dogs and this time was able to kill it. In life, the animal was described as being nearly black and having high shoulders and black back that sloped downward like a hyena. Unlike the Shunka Warakan, it was described as being friendly around dogs. Hutchins donated the specimen to a Sherwood, who had it mounted and displayed in his grocery and museum in Henry Lake, Idaho, where it was labeled a Ringodocus Gaiastaticus, a pre-existing term referring to a fearsome critter, in Rocky Mountain hyena. When Ross Hutchins published the story in 1977, the whereabouts of the Ringodocus were unknown, and it was thought to have been moved to somewhere in the Yellowstone area. In fact, Sherwood had donated it, alongside his other taxiderms, to an Idaho Museum of Natural History, where it was seen by Ray Ellen Moore sometime before 1987. It was later kept in storage until it was tracked down by Jack Kirby in 2007 and consequently loaned to Madison Valley History Museum. A full examination revealed that the Ringodocus measured 48 inches from the tip of its snout to its rump, not including the tail, and stands around 27 to 28 inches high at the shoulders. Its snout was noticeably narrow, and its coat is dark brown, almost black in color, with light tan areas, and including a faint impression of stripes on the flank. Despite its discovery, the Ringodocus has not been formally examined as of July 2019, nor has any of its hair samples been submitted for DNA analysis, partially due to the legal issues concerning which of the two museums has the authority to permit testing. However, in 2012, paleontologist Richard S. White wrote that the Idaho Museum conveyed ownership of the specimen to Kirby, putting responsibility for testing firmly in the Madison Valley Museum's hands. Are you with me still, Hive? I know this has just been one image on the screen. I do have a video coming up here in a second, so I just wanted to cover this history piece first, so that so we had a good groundwork. Let's see here, making sure I got the image for the modern one. Just a second here. There we go. So that's the colorized version, kids. That's how it looks in real life. Now, does it look like it is a black and white image? Give it a quality that it does not have when you see it in person. It's definitely does. I don't know if it's the angle here that they're taking the picture at, but it makes the back look like it slopes down much more prominently than it actually does. Oop, not that one yet. Than it actually does in reality. The high point on its back is actually right here. When you look at the actual specimen, which does match up with other canids, but would not be present in hyenas. As you can see here, got kind of a derpy face and the ears are too small. But this is bad taxidermy, right? This is bad taxidermy. That's my opinion on it. I love bad taxidermy. I'm a member of some Facebook groups that are just sharing bad taxidermy and weird taxidermy and stuff. I love it. It's fun. I do taxidermy myself. I have taxidermy behind me. I have tons of taxidermy in storage. So that I would love to get out of storage soon and have on display. But I digress. I do bug taxidermy and yeah. I have considered doing some bats, though. I do like bats, but I wouldn't get like live bats or catch bats or kill bats, or you could order them on some different services and taxidermy them yourself. I may consider doing that at some time. Let me know if that'd be something you all think this weird girl should do. But yeah, when you look at it in modern times, you can just kind of see that it's a badly taxidermied wolf, and that its coat may not have been healthy. It may have had a skin disease or something that caused it to lose patches of hair, or maybe it's just because it's old. But it looks like it does have those that patchiness in this picture too. Then again, that's the coloration that they describe too. Dark brown and light brown, like mottled look, almost like a brindle color. And this is what they're talking about with stripes here. See these dark lines that come down. But I don't know, because to me it looks like this is undercoat here. All these lighter patches here, to me, and I'm not looking at the specimen. I'm not examining it in real time, but I look at it from different angles. It's a different fur type. I don't think that anybody can argue with me on that. That there's just a different. This lighter color is a different fur type, and I think it looks like the undercoat to me. You know, someone who has always had like huskies and dogs that shed a lot like that. That's what it makes me think of, is when a cold weather dog that'll shed seasonally when it explodes with hair, and what's left afterwards at first is this kind of look. But but yeah, I think the lighter patches look like an undercoat, and I don't know maybe if this animal had recently had a shedding incident. But I digress. Yeah, I see a lot of skin too. That's why I'm thinking that's an undercoat. Like it just shed for its summer coat and hasn't really grown back in yet. Palm uglies, yes, tsunami, like that exactly. But yes, let's now, why am I bringing up this case from 2007 where they rediscovered this creature? Mostly because of the origins of the legend that we're talking about. Now, this is where we leave the Ringdocus behind, because I think that, in my opinion, it's case closed. This is a badly taxidermied wolf, created a legend. But this image is still cool. I still like this one. But what is this? The last wolf killed in Randolph County. We're talking about the Blue Devil here. Now, this creature, and it's all its lore, 1930s and 40s. A triangle of hills between the town of Jumbo and Grassy Creek in Webster County, West Virginia, is home to the largest cluster of reported sightings of the Blue Devil. These sightings, which occurred in the winter of 1939 through 1940, described a bluish dog-like creature, larger than a pony, that prowled the area late at night and emitted a ghostly howl. According to many in Webster County, I thought it was going to give me a newspaper name. According to many in Webster County, the animal was responsible for the deaths of a growing number of livestock over the period it stalked the land. Eventually, the creature began making appearances in neighboring Randolph County, where the residents joined the Valley Head Rod and Gun Club in offering a reward for its death, totaling $400, which would be over $7,200 today. Anyone interested in trying to catch a glimpse of the Blue Devil may do so by traveling down scenic Grassy Creek Road in Webster County between Jumbo and Grassy Creek. Like many West Virginian counties, Webster County saw a dramatic increase in industrial growth. They're talking about the killing off the wolves. This is a reconstruction that they actually did in 1941 of the last wolf killed in Randolph County, West Virginia. So they've wiped them out about 30 years ago, and then they start seeing this Blue Devil, this big wolf creature. Let's see here. Where was I? Many of the forests in Webster County were area were old-growth forests, which is becoming increasingly rare, unfortunately, meaning that they had largely or been largely undisturbed for well over a century, making them the ideal target for the lumber companies. As a result, one of the county's largest and fastest growing industries in the period was the timber industry. And we know that about New England in general, that it used to be expansive forest that you could, what did they say, like a squirrel could travel from Maine to Illinois without touching the ground. That'd be a world that we'll never get to see. As with many cases of cryptid sightings, economic insecurity fueled individual uncertainties and overactive imaginations, and the Blue Devil was born. One of the first reported sightings of the Blue Devil was by Jumbo resident John Clevenger, a former lumber company employee, then farmer, who claimed in December of 1939 that his much valued hunting dog had been attacked and killed by the beast. Another farmer, Ernest Coger, reported that his livestock had been spooked for several nights by some wild animal, attacked and killed cattle and sheep. Mr. V.S. Cunliffe, meanwhile, reported hearing a wild, inhuman scream outside her home in Diana, a few miles from Jumbo, and H.A. Anderson heard something in Hacker Valley that sounded like a panther. I wonder if this creature is not a mountain lion, because they were still around in the 1930s in West Virginia, I do believe. So the screaming could very well be a mountain lion, which they're extinct now. Eastern cougars went extinct, or were declared extinct officially in like 2017. It's sad, but yeah, some people, there's still sightings of them, obviously, and here I'm not really in the east too much. I'm in the westernmost east. I think I might be as far west as you can go and still be in the east. The city I live in just happens to fall in that location, because the Mississippi's the border, right? But we get western cougars out here traveling, mostly down from Canada, in from the Rockies and stuff. But they wander far and wide when they're young, looking for their own territories, and sometimes they make it this far. Not often, though. Newspapers throughout the state, particularly the state capital of Charleston, reported on a rising panic in Webster County area with considerable amusement. When the sighting spread to Randolph County in January of 1940, the Charleston Gazette reprinted the story from the Elkin Intermountain, calling the beast a varmint and wishing it might represent proof positive that panthers still stalked the West Virginian heartland. So maybe they did think that panthers were wiped out in West Virginia at this time. I thought they were still around in the 1940s. My mistake. Other particularly locals in Webster and Randolph County, however, were less cynical, and many took part in the growing search for whatever was killing their livestock. Several claimed to have killed the beast, some seeking to collect the reward offered by the Valley Head Rod and Gun Club. The first, Glenn Fisher and Bill Fisher Hollow, that's funny, Glenn Fisher of Bill Fisher Hollow, so I'm wondering if the Hollow is not named after his family then. I imagine it probably is. Reported before the reward was offered that he had shot and killed the animal in December of 1939, but his body had vanished before he could inspect it in the morning. Another coal miner, Elmer Coltley, killed something that Webster County Game Protector C.T. Whitaker characterized as a coyote, but resembling one. That's peculiar. After collecting the reward, Corley assured area residents that the Blue Devil was dead, and no further reports were issued regarding the beast to belie the claim. The following year, Webster Republic published a story detailing similar county-wide hunts 4 decades earlier. In 1897, the residents of Webster County had participated in the search for what the paper claimed was the last known gray wolf in West Virginia. On one night in January of 1895, it recounts the wolf had killed 27 lambs belonging to Jacob Hamrick in Randolph County. Shortly thereafter, the county courts of Randolph and Webster had offered a $100 reward, a little over $3,000 in today's currency. Then on New Year's Eve in 1897, the wolf was killed. The wolf had killed 5 more sheep at Jacob. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice again. Dang it. Can't seem to keep my voice around for more than a couple weeks these days. The wolf had killed 5 more sheep at John Hamrick's farm near Whitaker Falls. Banding together, Hamrick and his neighbors set off to hunt the animal in 2 feet of snow. 20 feet of snow would be more impressive. Stalking it over the course of several days before they finally brought it down. Publishing this account as they did just a short while after the Blue Devil sighting ended in 1940. The Webster Republican no doubt hoped the readers would come to the same conclusion it had, that the devil was just one more wild beast like the last gray wolf in West Virginia. Nothing supernatural to it, and the Republican might have dismissed the devil. Others haven't in any way interested in sightings. It may hunt for it between the roads, between Jumbo and Grassy Creek. Yeah. So that's the legend of the Blue Devil. And why is this important? It sounds like it's just more wolf lore, right? More wolf lore that we have from, like we have with the Shunkawarockin and all that good stuff, right? But this gets a little deeper. We're not... Oh, Linda. Yeah, let me restart. Where were we? I'm going to go all the way back to Ringadokus. All right, so... Yeah, why is this relevant? Hold on just a second. This is just... Gotta respond to this. Come on. If I change my lashes, my phone stops recognizing me, depending on which lashes I'm wearing. It's kind of annoying. Oh, there we go. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Let's let that sit there. Okay. That way if he responds, I'll see it. You don't have to pull it. All right. So, yeah, just more wolf lore, local wolf lore, whatever. I did a reenactment of it. Cute. But last spring, this started showing up everywhere. We're gonna watch and listen. So it's only the first segment of this. This person does like all kinds of trail cam and footage and stuff like that. But for this one, we're just going to let me switch it to the big screen. Just a second here. Here we are. There we go. All right. Just turning the volume up a little bit.
In this capture, we see the bizarre body of a deceased canine that a man is holding up, and it does not appear to be anything native to the area where it was killed, which just so happens to be the great state of West Virginia, home to the Appalachian Mountains. The picture was taken in a small community known as Elkins, home to a little over 6,800 people. The original post was captioned, "Billy Speck killed this wolf, hyena, in the mountain behind his house." And the unknown creature does seem to be on par with a wolf-hyena hybrid. What's it doing in the...
What would a wolf-hyena hybrid look like? Let's discuss that, because similarities between wolves and hyena are not synapomorphies. They are convergence. They're convergent characteristics for a ecological niche, and it's not unique to these two species either. There are other clades that throughout history have filled this niche and developed these characteristics in order to be cursorial pursuit predators. So a pursuit predator body type is built for long distance endurance. The relation between hyena and wolf is simply that they fill the same niche in their environment. They cannot breed. They are not closely related. Hyenas belong to the Feliformia family, or not family, but they, was it suborder or superorder? Anyway, Feliformia and Caeniformia is the big split between carnivores. So on one side you'll have the Feliformia, which is hyenas, obviously, and cats, feline, get it. Also big cats too. What we call civets, which are sort of like, well, there are civets that fill a niche similar to what Procyon fill in South America, like raccoons and stuff. So those are there's always this balance with the two clades, right? Like for big cats, you have bears. For caeniform, you have bears. For feliform, you have big cats. For the cursorial predator, you have canids and you have hyenids. And then for small rodent predators, you have mustelids, which is like weasels and stuff on one side, on canids, and then mongooses on the other. So you kind of get the idea. There's always this divide, but they fill the same niche and sort of, to some extent, follow similar body plans for the role that they play, whether it's apex predator, ambush predator, pursuit predator, whatever you have. But hyenas and wolves cannot breed together, cannot hybridize in any way.
State of West Virginia. Billy Speck, presumably an Elkins local, shot this creature in his backyard after spotting it at dark. The creature he shot looks similar to that of a prehistoric animal, such as a prehistoric wolf known as the dire wolf. Perhaps.
Well, so a dire wolf too is not necessarily it's not like just a giant scaled up wolf. It definitely wouldn't look like a hyena. It probably, some of the paleo art I've seen of it make it look like a big doll, and that's based on just on because we have a lot of dire wolf remains from like La Brea and stuff, so we know a lot about their physiology, right? And we're actually able to trace their closest relatives to being something more like a doll than a canis. A doll is they are a group of canids that live in Asia, and they're smaller than wolves, but they live in bigger packs. They're they're somewhat similar to the painted dogs of Africa in their social structure, but we'll have to cover that in more detail at some other point. But dire wolves, obviously they died out in North America I want to say between 12 and 8,000 years ago.
Perhaps there's some that may have survived extinction altogether. But who knows, maybe it's a native crossbreed that no one's discovered up until now. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below.
Alright, so that's it for that section. It's just the first minute and a half of it is the animal. But don't worry, because we're going to look at the pictures in more detail. Because this became a thing, and I kind of like put it in a file, you know, to say if I can get enough hyena sighting things. But I just want to cover it. North American hyenas is such a weird topic, so let's talk about Billy Speck's hyena. Billy Speck killed this wolf hyena in the mountains behind his house in Elkins, Virginia. Okay, this is presumably Billy Speck, right? And this is the beast that he brought down. So what do we see? We see pointed ears, long pointed ears. It kind of seems like it has maybe a little bit of a mane. The coat seems brindle. There's stripes. The legs are striped, though. The legs are definitely striped. So there's three out of the 4 living species of hyena are striped, right? They're not, the spotted hyena is kind of the outgroup. And that's the big boy. That's the one you have to watch out for. Not that you should be given striped hyenas and brown hyenas any quarter, because they will take you down if they see an opportunity as well. I don't think you have to worry about an aardwolf at all because they are insectivores and are not a threat to humans. But the stripe, so that leaves us with the striped hyena and the brown hyena. And let me see. Just a second. I want to pull up a comparison. Sorry, just wanted to get these comparisons pulled up here. Here we go. Okay, so this one's the striped or the spotted hyena, so we can nip that out right there. Okay, that one's not going to be relative to Billy's. This is a striped hyena. This is the aardwolf too. This thing's tiny, so it would not be the culprit either. So it's either going to be, talking about hyenas, it's going to be that or this. Let's go back and look at it. There's some more pictures of it too. Let's see. Look at that. Oh, I didn't mean to close it. Come on, Billy Speck. There we go. You got that one. And that one. Look how big those paws are. It's a massive creature, right? And you see you shot it. Pointed ears. So my intuition is telling me this is a brown hyena. To me, it looks like this is our culprit up here. What do you guys think? Looks like a brown hyena, huh? Because it has stripes, but they're really only defined on the legs, which I get right here. Striped hyena is also, the base color is more of a cream or white, whereas the brown hyena is, as its name says, a brown, which I think also is prevalent here. But what the heck? Brown hyena, striped hyena, it doesn't really matter, because what the heck is it doing in West Virginia? What is this monstrous animal doing roaming a mountainside in West Virginia? So that this video popped up in my feed and reminded me that I wanted to do this. So here we are. All right, so let's do some investigation, kids. Are you ready? All right, first and foremost, Billy Speck. Billy Speck, who I've looked up and investigated. I can't find anything about him other than just people claiming that's who this gentleman is, right? No further details. Videos like this never pop up in your feed, Maya. You're not subscribed to the right channels. Yeah, some people do say it was a wolf or a escaped hyena, but we're going to explore deeper. Bree's going to help us out. So in the first picture, let's look for clues. Clues! All right, so first of all, we don't get a lot of clue about the area that we're in. Billy's wearing some, looks like camo slacks. Blue t-shirt. He's wearing a hat. But we can't really see much in this picture. The picture that showed up in the video, right? This one. You can't really see his hat in that one, but you can see a little bit of his hat in that one down there. But let's finish looking at this one real quick. Okay, see some green grass back there, so makes me think that it's not like the winter. I know there's no claim about what season this took place in. So it doesn't really matter, but we know that it's wherever it is, it's not in a winter cycle of the season. Billy's wearing long sleeves, so I'm guessing it may not be too warm, but you can wear long sleeves when it's hot too if you're trying to keep yourself from bugs, or if you're going to be walking through bramble and stuff. Long sleeves are great to keep you from getting all cut up. But here, in these pictures, we do get some more hints. Okay, first of all, he's wearing a different vest here. Probably his hunting vest. The creature's head's popped up like a stick in typical trophy hunting fashion. Billy is laid back behind it in order to make it look bigger. You can get an idea of the size right there, though. Showing how big its mouth is, how wicked its teeth are, and how massive its paws are. There's nothing in these images here that give us any indication of the location, right? Just how it gives us a good indication how big this is. I, at this point, looking at these images, have no doubt that this is a brown hyena. However, I do doubt that it is shot in West Virginia. So what do we have here is, and I've zoomed in on this, but let me see, open image, new tab. This hat says MANGWA. But the G is distorted by some sort of shape that looks like it might be the continent of Africa. Why is the guy wearing a hat with the continent of Africa in West Virginia while hunting hyena on his back lot? Yeah, that's kind of interesting, huh? Yeah, so let's see how this plays out. I think there's some more images in this slide. Yeah, here's another image with another set of hands. This isn't Billy, because this person is clearly black. Looking at the animal's teeth. There's the paw again. This time we get a different story with it. So, yeah, interesting that this one would have a completely different story attached to it. A little bit of research goes a long way. Beauties and bees, and the person who does these videos needs to learn that, because this isn't like a cryptic channel or anything. I mean, if you look at the rest of them, they're just like the mountain lion in the hallway stuff that's real, right? Maybe the jackalope's a little silly, but I think this video is is maybe poorly researched, right? I mean, I'm not, and again, this is a channel I subscribe to, right? Not on this account, but on one of my animal accounts, because they have animal footage. But yeah, disappointed that they couldn't do the minimum research to see, hey, there's more than one picture in the set. Hey, this one we see a hat with a symbol on it. Let's zoom in on that hat. Hey, maybe if we Google hyena and the name of this place, we'll get a hunting thread. Oh, a hunting thread that tells us what this is. Oh, look, it does. It says, if you type in mangwa and hyena, it'll tell you about, where was it? About mangwa hunting safari with these pictures in South Africa. Hey, well, but this is Billy Speck, right? I mean, surely Billy Speck is fictional. Yeah, Billy Speck is not a real person, and I explain that down here in my comments. All right, circle around, everyone. And I went out to Facebook. I'm not going to show the guy's Facebook page, but he uses this as his image. He's very proud of this hunt. So it's not like it's being kept under wraps or anything. It's just no research is what's keeping this circulated. I said, all right, gather around, everyone. The animal you see in this video is a brown hyena, H. brunei, shot in South Africa by James Rayleigh, consultant at Mangwa Hunting Safari in April of 2022. This could be sourced to his personal Facebook page and was also shared among a myriad of hunting forums. There are a series of photos that accompany this. While they do not give away the location, the mangwa hat is certainly telling. As previously mentioned, hyenas are feliforms and wolves are caniforms. It would have better reproductive odds with your house cat. So to be clear, not a wolf-hyena hybrid, and certainly not in North America. If you want to watch me break down more nonsense like this, subscribe to the Hive, because I gotta always be closing, right? ABC. Come join the Hive, because we debunk the crap out of nonsense like this. If you like this, if you like seeing Bree take down ridiculousness like this, where people just don't do their research, or where there's actually some intrigue, or sometimes where it's a full-on hoax, doesn't matter. We are going to crack it wide open here in Cryptic Corner and try to do our best to sort out what we're actually looking at in these videos and images. Got just the rest of what I had for this is just anecdotal stories, but I think this has been a good run for Cryptic Corner. If we revisit hyenas in North America again, it'll only be via, unless some new images come out, it'll only be via anecdotal tales of people seeing something on the side of the road that they think is a hyena. But as we all know, the average person is not going to be real good at assessing what a hyena actually looks like, or what a bear looks like, or what a wolf looks like. So this was not a hoax necessarily, Sandy. This is more of, well, I guess maybe somebody originally took this picture and said, hey, this is in Elkins, West Virginia, as a troll. But it really did take on a life of its own in the spring of last year, and I was hoping for more information to come out about it publicly, but no one ever. It just disappeared, as they do, instead of someone actually pulling this up. So I looked, and there's like no videos saying, hey, this is not a hyena, or I'm sorry, this is not a hyena shot in West Virginia. Yeah, there's no There's no video out there saying, hey, this hyena was actually not shot in West Virginia, but was shot on a safari in South Africa. And I do wonder with how the hat's cut off in this one that they choose to share so much. Is part of the reason they picked this one instead of that one. Because this one, the animal definitely looks more intimidating, right? It definitely looks like it's ready to rumble here, where he's got it making it look like way bigger, like its head's 3 times the size of his head, which is not. I mean, again, you can look at this picture here. I mean, the head's even forced perspective here because it's turned towards the camera to make it look a little bit bulkier. But and not to say brown hyenas aren't big; they can get massive. These guys hunt seals and stuff too. It's they're a unique. That's their unique take. And when I think of brown hyenas, that's what I mainly think of, is that they hunt along the South African coast and hunt seal pups and hunt seals, which is an interesting niche that they've carved out for themselves there. Yeah. So anyway, that's been every freaking time, I swear. That's been Cryptic Corner for tonight. I hope that you all enjoyed that. If you disagree with me about any of this, if you think maybe Billy Speck is a real person and this South African hunter is the fraud, I welcome information. I've seen Mr. Saylor's Facebook page, though. I know he's a real person. I know he looks like this, so it'd have to be somebody doing Photoshop on the face and things like that to make it look like it was him, if this was actually this alleged Billy Speck person. So thank you for joining us in Cryptic Corner. Please like, subscribe, share, please. And we will see you next week. All right. And for those of you watching this live from the Hive with me this morning, stick around because we got Cryptic Corner coming up, and that's going to be fun. So, all right. I will see you guys over there.
Hey, you that Matt Powell guy?
I am, yep.
I seen you on YouTube with that Ken Hovind guy. You're like Ken Hovind light.
And just the fact that they're now saying that transgenderism is somehow healthcare and that we need to have our tax dollars go to supporting somebody mutilating their body. People today think this is somehow cool and that it's really awesome to go and get a gender change. And the truth is that there are only male chromosomes and female chromosomes. There is no it chromosomes. And just the word it is degrading to another human. But if they're not a male or a female, what are they? They refer to themselves as an it. No, you know what's abusive and wrong? Telling your kids that it's okay to go and get their body mutilated by some supposed doctor who should be making them better, not mutilating their bodies. This kind of unscientific garbage and propaganda that the news media props up. Read the Bible, study some science, and it won't be long before you realize there's only male and female, and there's only male chromosomes, female chromosomes. There is no other gender.
One of the things that I've noticed is they'll say, well, which God is it? You've got the Hindu God, you've got the Mormon God, you've got the Jehovah's Witness God, you've got the Christian God, you've got the Baptist God, and you've got all these different gods according to them. 110 million. More than the Holy Wars, 10 times more at least, than religion ever thought of doing any killing, okay?
His dad ended up having to get him a job as a comforter for a ship captain while they were floating about in the ocean.
You know, a lot of people in your community have accused me of straw-manning evolution theory and trying to prove things that are supposedly unprovable. He absolutely destroyed every single argument, quote unquote, that the godless engineer made. And there's a lot of people that say that anybody that listens to creationists or anybody that listens to myself have really drunk the Kool-Aid. And they love to use that phrase that our listeners have drank the Kool-Aid. So anybody that says that people have drank the Kool-Aid by listening to my content, they're using a bad example of an atheist who took a bunch of lives as proof, quote unquote, that Christianity is somehow bad. So when he's saying that I'm just making this stuff up and it's creationist talking points that I'm regurgitating, and they will accuse us of supposedly having quote unquote blind faith, when they themselves don't even have any evidence whatsoever for this supposed Oort cloud that creates comets. Atheists will accuse us all day of having blind faith and not having any reasons for what we believe in.
I wanted to do a video specifically addressed to the atheist community and those who have come out against me in the comment section on YouTube. I wanted to do this quick video just addressed to the theistic evolutionists that are out there and those who believe that somehow the Bible is compatible with theistic evolution. The only way that monkeys could have got there, since they found monkey fossils there that weren't supposed to be there according to evolution because monkeys were in Africa, the only way they could have got there according to evolution theory was surfing the ocean blue. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I'm going to trust what God said. You could trust people like Aaron Ra, Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, those who don't have your best interest in mind, the celebrities of the world. So if you're a theistic evolutionist and you're listening to this and you want to continue to believe in theistic evolution and continue having an opinion outside of what the facts are and what the truth is, you're welcome to do that.
If the universe was eternal, we'd reach a point of equilibrium. By the way, we wouldn't even be here. The planets would be out of orbit. Everything would be a mess. Life wouldn't even be able to exist. So when they say, the universe is eternal, I just ask them, what celebrity have you been listening to? So there are no missing links. And Stephen Gould, who's one of the top paleontologists in the world, said, and I quote, he said, there are no missing links. The whole chain's missing. Look, over 110 million people have died under atheistic communism here. More than the Holy Wars, 10 times more, at least, than religion ever thought of doing any killing. So whenever dealing with an atheist, you're going to hear a lot of regurgitated arguments that they've heard from television stars or people on the internet or their favorite atheist YouTuber that they like.
I seen you on YouTube with that Ken Hovind guy. You're like Ken Hovind light.
Perhaps, man. What's your name?
I'm Rick.
Matt Powell, nice to meet you.
I'm an atheist.
Hey, and welcome to CreationWatch. We got a fun one for today. I just did another Matt Powell quoting video for the interlude here and got people fired up on the side chat. He says some of the dumbest things about gender and monkeys and all kinds of crazy stuff. But the main point is that we do air quotes about it. I do suggest that someone somewhere should get a counter and count those up. Maybe we could do that. Maybe we'll do that when we hit 1,000. There's a few things I thought about doing when we hit 1,000. We're so close. Look how close we are, guys. 840. We just need 160 more people. That's like, it's like if all of you, let's see how many of you are watching. We got 25 people in here. So if all of you create 4 sock accounts, we'll get there like before the end of the show. And some of you all have to create more sock accounts than that, but we'll get there. I mean, we don't have to create 5 sock accounts. Everybody create 5 sock accounts, and that'll get us really close. Anyway, no, I'm just joking. There's a lot said in those videos about science and gender and stuff like that, and the idea that gender is based on chromosomes and all this weird nonsense. They just interchange the word sex and gender as if they're synonymous, and I believe in their worldview they probably are, but I don't ever expect to interact with Matt Powell. I think that he was intimidated by me before, when I was Brainbug and had the Brainbug channel. He was intimidated by the idea of engaging with me on different topics and stuff. So he wanted, other than like maybe the Grand Canyon, he didn't want to talk to me about much. So the notion that I poke a lot of fun at him is because he's a coward, right? So he's had every opportunity to talk to me. Him and Ken Ham, they've had the opportunity to engage with me, and they don't want to. And that's fine. I'm not even about that, right? I'm not even. Yes, please subscribe to One Ring 42 and Delicious Danish, because they are such wonderful little channels, and they deserve way more subscribers than they have currently. I would like to see them both at least hit 500 in 2023. That's not too much of a out of the way goal. I think that's doable, right? Let's make it happen. But what was I saying? Yeah, about, like I was talking about, like Matt Powell. There's other people like I don't anticipate that I will be engaging with Kent Hovind directly. I just don't think that they'll talk to me. I know Matt Powell won't talk to me. Matt Powell won't talk to me after transitioning. So, but, and I think Kent Hovind only does stuff on Standing for Truth's channel right now, and I don't think that Donnie would platform me anyway. Either Donnie was bent on releasing a whole bunch of information about my transition to Atheist Junior stopped him. Atheist Junior stepped in and said, "Hey, Donnie, don't do that." And fortunately, Donnie actually listened to AJ, so I appreciate that. I appreciate AJ taking that step for me. I kind of wish that, I don't know, maybe Donnie should just show how awful he is instead of being held back. But I don't know. So I probably won't be engaging with Donnie either. There are a few apologists that I seem to be able to engage with and have a good conversation with, because they seem like they're overall good people. And some of them are young Earth creationists. We have Rebecca's always been nice to me and friendly with me. I don't I don't have any hard feelings or bad feelings towards Rebecca. I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but that's okay. We can still get along and be friends. Me and Rebecca are friends on Facebook and stuff. So yeah, we're like real friends. Like, she messages me and checks in on me. So it's kind of nice to have friends like that. Some other people might be that I consider reasonably worth interacting with. Has been I do all right with Sal. I know a lot of people don't like Sal Cordova too much or think he's a bit harsh, but I've always got along with him fairly well. We don't agree on a lot of stuff, but we don't have any bad feelings towards one another, right? And then there's Peter, Paleologos, and I like Peter. I think I like Peter's content. Peter spends as much time dunking on people like Ken Hovind and Matt Powell and standing for truth as I do. It's fantastic to see someone who holds their similar worldview saying that, hey, yeah, but don't listen to these people because they're bad. They're disingenuous actors. I guess I don't know what else to call them. They're not engaging honestly when it comes to Matt and Kent and standing for truth and Dr. Nathaniel Jensen and Ken Ham and all the AIG folks and all that. But not to say necessarily that because Peter is a student of Todd Wood, I believe. Anyway, so I thought I'd make this fun and that we could go over and look at Peter's channel. What do you guys think? Does that sound fun? And I'm not going to. I'm not picking on Peter specifically because, I cover a lot of people on here. I'm actually thinking about doing some atheist as well on here just to shake things up. I think I might do some response videos to that. I can't remember. I don't know if you guys have seen the channel or not. It's kind of small, but what's his name? Mark something. Mark, it might be Mark Red or Mark Reed or something like that. Is an atheist YouTuber, like an indoctrinated atheist YouTuber, really into scientism. Mark Reed, I think it is, if I remember correctly. I might do some response videos to him because I've seen a lot of the stuff he's putting down. It's like, does this guy really know what he's talking about? So, yeah, that might be something on the table, but we'll see. Anyway, but we're going to look at Peter today because, again, like I said, I like Peter. He does videos mostly on evolutionary topics, so it's right up my alley. He does stuff with Erica with Get Sick Gibbon, which is always she's always entertaining and fun, but he does engage with other people too. There's Todd Wood, like I was talking about. Let's Talk Creation. We've covered that on this show before. Is Genesis History. We've covered them before too. So Peter's right there with us. And Peter is finally going to answer a question for us that I've had for years. Since I first heard the term kind, I've been like, yeah, what's going on out here? Oh, Mark Reed is here. Hey, Mark Reed. No, I knew he was here. That's why I started saying that. No, I probably won't be able to find anything from Mark to respond to. But well, maybe I will. I don't know. But there are some people that are on the atheist side of things that I would respond to. There's also good atheist content creators that I'd like to just do commentary on. Like I was talking about Tony Reed and his Bombardier Beetle video. I would love to just sink my hands into this. What kind are you? Yeah, exactly. We're going to find all about kinds. with Peter today. So let's jump right in. This is a 20-minute video, so we're probably going to be here for a minute.
Hello and welcome. I'm Pete and thanks for joining me today as I ask the question, what is a created kind? I want to begin by walking us through some of the relevant scripture passages. I also want to talk a little bit about how modern creationists conceptualize a kind, and then finally how we can use science to detect their boundaries. So let's begin by looking at some Bible passages.
Let me know if the audio is okay here too. Sorry, we're getting distracted by the side chat. Yeah, let me know if the audio is okay, though.
The first place in the Bible where it really talks about kinds is when God creates the plants on the third day of creation. So let's read Genesis 1, verses 11 through 13. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth."
Okay, so the first mention of kind, Genesis 1, 11 through 13, talks about plant kinds, okay? And we have plants divided into two kinds here. Well, okay, no, maybe it's not dividing them into two kinds. Let's see what Peter says about it, so...
And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. The Hebrew word which is translated as kind here is the word mean, and it denotes some kind of division, there being different types of things. And in context, it's saying that there are different types of plants that yield seed and different types of fruit trees which bear fruit. So these seem to be two general categories. The plants yielding seed, seems to refer to smaller plants that have a relatively bare seed, and then the fruit trees bearing fruit seems to indicate the larger plants that have a seed which is encapsulated within a fleshy fruit body.
Titan, are you there? Titan, do you hear this this debauchery of botany? Sorry, Peter. Plants would probably be easier to divide by plants that spore, and then by angiosperms and what's the phytosperms? So plants would be like ferns don't seed at all, right? And they're a basal group of plants. A major group of plants too that were very Oh, be nice, Titan. Let's focus on the arguments, okay? Because plants are not should not be divided into small seeds and fruiting, because there's obviously small plants that produce big fruit, big fleshy fruit. What comes to mind right now is of course the melon family, which are all vines producing cantaloupes, watermelons, and things like that. The reason I call on Titan is my botany friend when it comes to plants and plant reproduction. I always lean pretty hard on them. We communicate mostly through Discord about it, but if I have questions about plant evolution and things like that, that lean into actual plant growth and diversity, I'll lean on Titan to answer questions on that. But yeah, plants, you could divide them into, it depends on where you want to divide things. You could do vascular plants and non-vascular plants. Be a good point to divide plants in half. That'd probably be one of the earliest places that you could divide plants in half. So non-vascular and vascular. But back then, no plants were producing seeds at all. That's not how plants were reproducing, right? That's not how they were spreading across the land. It was sporing was the OG method of reproduction for land plants. Seeds and fruits and all that didn't come till much later. Fruits didn't come till much later. But seeds, we get some seeds earlier on. Anyway, we're only a minute and a half into a almost 20 minute video.
So what we see here is that there are different types of things right from the beginning, different types of plants, even within these broad general categories that are laid out here. Now, some creationists have interpreted this passage as meaning that there is some connection to reproduction here.
Yeah, I'm a glorified insect farmer, not really a entomologist either, Titan, but people hit me up about bugs all the time.
But I don't think that's the case. Let me read you this again. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. Now certain people want to interpret this as saying that the kind is referring to the seed which the plant is bringing forth, that it's the plant yielding seed which is according to their own kind. But I don't think that's what the passage is referring to. Instead, what it seems to be referring to is that there are different types of trees here. It's not talking about what type their seed is, although it is, of course, true that the seed is of the same kind as the parent plant. No, what seems to be the case is that there are different types of trees here and different types of plants that yield seed.
But there's trees that don't yield fruit, too. What about like coniferous trees and things like that don't have fruit? What about ginkgo and stuff and plants like that? They don't have. Are they not the same kind? Are they not? Or which kind are they in? The ones that bear fruit or the ones that bear seeds? It seems like they're towing that line, right?
And this is the case throughout the first chapter of Genesis. We hear about how the land-dwelling organisms are created according to their kinds. And it's not in reference to their reproduction, once again. It's in reference to the way in which they're made. They're made according to their kinds. It's not talking about them bringing forth according to their kinds in this specific context. One passage which I think does draw a connection between the kinds and reproduction is Genesis 6:19 through 20.
All right, we're gonna get another passage here. I want to read it before Peter reads it, though. Or Pete. Sorry, at the beginning he said his name was Pete, so I'm not gonna call him Peter anymore. I always do call him Peter, but I'm gonna call him Pete today. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. So every sort, we have another classification here. We have sorts and kinds now. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kind, and animals according to their kind, and every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind, 2 of every sort shall come in to you to keep them alive. So I have a problem here with the creeping things because they're going to need more than 2, or some of them don't need 2. Some of them don't have 2 kinds, some of them only have 1 kind. I'm thinking mostly like of snails here, who are hermaphrodites. And there's ones that will breed and will breed, and the population depends on having multiple sperm donors. So the female will need to be gravid from multiple males before she starts to lay her eggs. See that a lot in things like cephalopods and things like that. But cats can even do that, have multiple parents, but it adds to genetic diversity in the population. That's why house cats are able to escape what the creationists might call genetic entropy, right? Because a female can get impregnated by multiple males and produce offspring that are genetically diverse from one another, as if they came from completely separate litters.
And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive of you. They shall be male and female. of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind. 2 of every sort shall come in to you to keep them alive. This passage comes near the beginning of the flood narrative.
We have kinds and sorts, so I hope Peter's next video is what is a sort.
God has just warned Noah that he's going to send a flood, that Noah needs to build an ark, and now that all sorts of animals are going to come aboard that ark with Noah to keep them alive. But what's important here for our talk today is that the animals which Noah has to bring aboard come in pairs, 2 of every sort, and they have to be male and female.
And as we already discussed, pairs are part of the fruit kind. So, all the animals fit inside the fruit. Oh, I'm just messing with you.
What's important here is that they're male and female, because Noah has to bring these animals aboard so that they can survive the flood and reproduce. Now, in the context in which it's being used here, that means that the kinds must be reproductively isolated, right? If there are different sorts of animals that Noah is bringing aboard the ark that could just
And he's using sorts here too. So are we breaking our sorts broken down into kinds, or are kinds broken down into sorts? Or are there sorts within kinds and kinds within sorts? I need more. This is adding more classifications, and I need to understand them. So hopefully he gets into it.
Their breed, why would he need 2 of every sort? He wouldn't. He could take much fewer. No, the point here is that the sorts, the kinds of animals which Noah is bringing on the ark are reproductively isolated, such that he needs a pair of both, because...
Or colony, like ants, right? They don't have just a male and a female. They need as a small starter pack, right? with a little group of all the different individuals that they need to keep the colony going, because they need the nanny bees to help sculpt the development of the babies into different caste. They need the males to create the sperm, the queen to lay the eggs. They need to fertilize, or the workers to fertilize the eggs. And then, of course, with bees, they are going to need, I think, like, what about birds of prey too, like eagles and stuff, who don't, not only are they going to need, but bees, the way they reproduce is they form these like clouds up in the sky of males, and the females, when they fly through it, the males grab on and impregnate her and then rip off during the act they lose their genitals and die, right? So they fly up to this cloud way up in the sky, like 60 meters up, right? And they form this, all these males form this cloud, and the females fly through it. The females on what they call a nuptial flight, they'll fly through it, and the males try to grab on and impregnate her as she passes through. When the males do this, again, they die right afterwards, but this is not something that can happen in the confines of an ark, as far as I know, and this needs to happen in order to procreate with these organisms.
Because otherwise they would not be able to produce progeny. And I think that's the best explanation for why exactly Noah has to bring 2 of every kind and why they have to be male and female. I think there's another passage which also has some interesting insights for us, and that's Genesis 2:18-23. So I'll read that now. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, took one of his...
I think this is the PG version, though, right? This is the passage where God told Adam to try getting it on with each of the animals to see if one of them would be a good partner for him.
His ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man."
So the thing about this passage that I always thought is funny is it's like it's taking a concept. It's lore of taking a concept of bringing forth life from your own body, producing life within yourself and extracting it from yourself as an individual creation. It's taking that away from women who are the natural progenitors of this process, right? Pregnancy. It's taking that away from a woman and saying, yeah, but a man started it. Yeah, we all have a mother, but Adam was Eve's mother and father. It's weird, right? Super weird. Let's see what Peter says about these passages, though.
One of the first observations which jumps out at me from this passage is that Adam needs a helper who is fit for him. God brings all sorts of birds and beasts to Adam, but none
There was sorts again.
of them can be his helper. And that's because they're incompatible. Adam needs not only a sexual partner, one whom he can actually reproduce with. He can't reproduce with these other organisms, but he also...
And that's the implication there, right? That he was that God wanted him to try that. Am I misunderstanding that, Pete? Please, I hope you do if you do a response to this, am I misunderstanding that God was like, hey, I just want, hey, you wanna bang one of these animals, and see if you like it, see if you all can make babies. Eek.
Also needs one who is mentally fit for him and spiritually fit for him, on the same stage as him. And all of these creatures have low mental capacities. They don't have a spiritual capacity. They're not sexually fit for Adam, and that's why...
It's a spiritual capacity. I'm hoping that gets explained too now, because we're like right now I've got more questions than answers, but we're only 6.5 minutes in. That's a 20-minute, almost 20-minute video.
But he needs a partner who is of the same kind as him. And so what does God do? He takes actually...
Why did God create 2 of each kind of animal? Or I don't know how many sorts of each kind, but or how many kinds of each sort. But again, you have to help me with that, whether sorts are kind, or whether kinds are nested in sorts, or sorts are nested in kinds. Bump his volume. Yeah, I sure can't. Well, he's just about all the way up, though. Is he super soft? Yeah, so with the kinds and sorts now, I need to know how that's nested. But what was I even saying? Yeah, we'll just let him go.
A piece of Adam, one of Adam's ribs, and he makes the woman out of the rib, maximizing the similarities between Adam
Is that better?
and his wife, Eve. Speaking of Eve, it's important to note that wasn't actually her name yet. We only hear of her being named Eve, which means mother of all living, after the fall. Here, Adam simply names her woman, which is more of just a categorical name, a type of person. He is a man and she is a woman, different types. And that seems to be the same way in which...
So God named him Adam and called him man, but did not name Eve. Eve did not get named until after the fall.
Adam named the other creatures which God brought to him. when God brought the birds and the beasts to Adam, he wasn't giving them personal names like Fluffy and Bowser or things like that. He was giving them categories.
You don't know that. You weren't there, Peter. You were not there to see if he didn't name some of those animals cute names like Bowser. Maybe he was a Super Mario fan. You don't know.
Categorical names, it appears, which is how this is actually a manageable task. And so when giving all of these names, it appears that this is an exercise of dominion, right? God had given Adam dominion over all of creation, and Adam exercised it by naming the creatures, right? We name things which we own. And so there's a certain amount of control, of dominion exercised in...
I do not believe that man has dominion over the animals, though. So we're going to our belief systems are going to differentiate from there. But regardless, is this like a true name sort of thing, where the organisms have a true name, in the Bible, it says the true name of dog is dog. So that's what Adam named it in the beginning. Is that how we?
Naming these animals here that God brings to Adam. And I think it's also interesting that Adam is able to name them all. God doesn't seem to really give him ideas or direct him in this, but Adam simply knows what to name these different creatures. And so it appears that there's some intuition, and creationists have argued that this can be the basis for our understanding of kinds.
So kinds are prescriptive. I think that's what Peter's saying here. So it's not that we've described a dog as a dog, but the word, the true name of it that Adam used, whether, I don't know what the Hebrew word for dog is, for instance, or what language did Adam even speak when he was naming it? Are we calling dogs the right name? Is it canine? Is that the proper word? What is Piero? It'd be like Latin, right? So which names are the real names? It sounds like, because they're prescriptive, it seems like that'd be important. If these kinds have real names, that there's a real objective dog kind. Yeah, I'm sorry, reading Richard Manson out there. Hey, Richard, good to see ya.
That there's a certain amount of intuition that comes along with the different types of creatures which God made. So in the Bible, it talks about how God makes these different kinds of creatures, but there's so much diversity that we hear about in Genesis already, right? We hear...
Why couldn't he just make two kinds of people like he made two kinds of all the animals, though? Or like two of each kind of people the same way? Why do you have to do the whole rib thing? Yeah.
About there's fruit trees, we hear about these trees that bear seed, and then there's passages I didn't read about all of the types of swimming creatures and flying creatures and creeping things and beasts that God creates. So we have a lot.
But we need to explore that. I was hoping that we were going to go into that, and we were going to differentiate, like, creeping things. What is a creeping thing? Because it says that's a kind, right? A creeping thing is a kind. Or is it a sort? If you're going to tell me it's a sort, that's fine. But we need to know what a sort is then. So we need to know what a kind is. We need to know what a sort is. There's a lot to explore here. And creeping things cover so much. I think like everything from rodents to arachnids to mollusks, like snails, isopods, they're crustaceans. Creeping things seems to encompass a great deal of organisms. And if that is one kind, what did the original creeping thing look like? Because I can only imagine it being some kind of furry, chitin covered, oh my gosh, like monstrosity. They got Lovecraftian horror is what it would have to be.
A lot of different types of things already present here at the Creation.
Ooh, now there's types. So we're keeping track. We got types and sorts within kinds. Are kinds within sorts, and then there's types within kinds? Oh my goodness.
According to the Genesis account. And so it seems that God created an abundance of different types of organisms right from the very beginning here. Hybridization is a way in which we can tell which organisms belong to the same kind. The Bible seems to indicate that creatures which can interbreed belong to the same kind. Creatures from separate kinds cannot interbreed. Now, the issue here is that it's only an additive criterion. That is, if two organisms can interbreed, then they must belong to the same kind. But if they can't interbreed, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't belong to the same kind. And that's because speciation has happened. Creatures have become so genetically different from each other, and even morphologically distinct, that they can no longer interbreed anymore. And so there's limited usefulness to the criterion of hybridization. Creationist Frank Marsh played an...
we'll go on. I'm sorry. That just, with the hybrid thing, it's just a representation of just, genetic differentiation in a population over a geographic area. And it can fold back over itself as well, or it can isolate in pockets, things like that, and be reabsorbed into the population to be expressed at a later point in the gene. So speciation is a lot more complicated than just hybridization. And anyway,
influential role in developing the Christian understanding of biology, and he developed the word barometer.
Well, ring 42 so there are organisms. So species, the classes that we put things in, species, genus, family, all that, they're made up, right? We made them up. They're not real. They are just a circle that we drew on the gradient of related things and how closely they are related to us. Draw a circle around this group and then a circle around that group that this group's in, and so forth. It's called nested cladistics, right? So with kinds, it would have to be at I think the family level would be about the lowest you could go, even though super families like pantherines and felines, which is like house cats and big cats, can produce hybrids. A mountain lion can produce, which is a small cat, the biggest of the small cats, can produce offspring with a leopard. It's called a pumapard, and it's a dwarf. It's dwarfed from the genetics of that hybridization, and that's just what the expression is on the clades when you cross them. But that's a super family. So, having to draw the line at the species level, I don't agree. I don't agree that I don't think any young Earth creationists would draw the line at the species level. Because like a tiger and a lion can breed, and I don't think that they would argue that a lion and a tiger are the same species. I think they would argue that they're the same kind, though. I'd imagine that the argument would be that there was a panther kind. Even though we always see lions getting loaded onto the ark in art, there couldn't have been lions, right? There couldn't have been lions and tigers, at least. And you do see that in some art, but you don't actually, I don't know if there's any place in scripture that says, lions and tigers are different kinds. So that's just somebody's artistic representation. But other things that can hybridize, like a false killer whale can hybridize with a dolphin, for instance. It's, a camel can hybridize with a llama, not naturally, but we can artificially make a camel llama hybrid. Are they the same kind, though? Would you say a llama and a bacterian camel are the same kind?
Common. coined from two Hebrew words. One is bara, which means he created, and the other is min, that one that we looked at, which means kind. And so from him, we get the idea of the created kind. Now, there's different ways in which creationists have conceptualized created kinds. One of these is species fixity, the idea that species do not change over time. This is not only obviously wrong from what we know about biology, but it's also biblically problematic because there are way too many species of birds and land-dwelling creatures than could fit on the ark. In other words, it simply doesn't work. Now, there's another way in which creationists conceptualize kinds that is more accurate, and this is the idea of the creationist orchard. And that is that rather than having a single tree of life where all creatures are related, we have lots of little trees. God created these initial populations of organisms which have diversified since then. So there's been new origin of species.
So do we have
are not
do we have diversification before the flood? I think this blue line on these types of charts represent the flood of Noah. So I see the species diversifying in a pre-flood world. What was the driving forces of evolution then, if there was no because I don't believe that there maybe there was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there was diversification in a pre-flood world. I thought that all the created kinds, because if you look at this, and that blue line is so all birds are the same kind, and then they diversified into different sorts. Trying to keep up here. They diversified into different sorts. But then there was the flood. Because we got a bird right here. So a bird is what they're showing, right? Diversified into different sorts, but all of the other sorts died out during the flood. Right? And only one survived because we have one lineage coming from here. And that diversified into all modern birds. So our birds, all one kind, have all the species of birds that we see today. Are they all one kind? Or is birds a sort? And then there's kinds within that sort. And then types within the kind? I'm trying to break this down. I'm mulling this over. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, Peter.
Constant. The braided Berriman concept is a more recent addition by Dr. Rob Carter, and it simply recognizes the possibility that God created populations of organisms and not pairs in the beginning. It appears that God only created pairs of humans, and these other types of organisms probably started with whole populations intact already. And what appears to have happened then is that at the flood, Noah may possibly have taken organisms from different populations, and because they belong to the same kind, aboard the ark with him. Or he may have even sampled multiple.
Let me look at this chart here. Okay, so this is kind of this, I guess, the same as the previous demonstration. But do we have, like, down here at the bottom, we have these three merging and converging into one population, spreads out into the two after the flood?
Multiple populations within the same kind and taken them all on the ark with him then. In their paper, A Revised Berriman Concept, Drs. Wood, Wise, Sanders, and Doran look at the definition of a kind and develop a new definition of a kind. They define a Berriman as the actualization of a potentiality region at any point or period in history.
The actualization of a potentiality region at any point or period in history, including but not limited to all of history.
Including but not limited to all of history. Now that sounds very theoretical, so what exactly does that mean? Well, we have to understand the idea of biological character space. That is, that organisms have different traits about them. right? We can have blue eyes, we can have brown eyes, we can have different types of colored hair, we can have different skin tones, we can have different bone shapes. And each of those traits is what we call a character, and that's what we use to build character matrices, which are basically these whole collections of data that describe exactly what features an organism has. Now, in biological characters,
Looking for synapomorphies, when we're looking for, you can look for genetic synapomorphies too, but that's what he's talking about.
space, this is the idea that we can theoretically think of this space where it's a multi-dimensional space where every single dimension is a different character, and we can plot within this dimension where different organisms are, right? So one organism can have this trait, another organism can have this trait. And when we add up these dimensions, we can think of these different types of species as basically these dots.
This is a good representation of what I'm talking about with nested cladistics, but it's and making it in a 3D space like this especially is poignant. But the problem with it is it's difficult to explain how the divergence works when it comes to concepts like convergence and among organisms and divergence of characteristics, punctuated equilibrium, and of course niche vacuum and partitioning can be deciphered from this, but you have to understand the data. So this coming up on the screen with no information, we don't know what we're looking at, of course, but we could infer that each color in these clusters represents a species, and the overlap of traits with other species that are closely or more distantly related.
Floating within this character space, and their position in this character space tells us what traits they have. Now, by understanding this, then, we can think about their idea of the potentiality region, which is that there's an area in which organisms can basically diversify into. So there's basically a starting area where this population, original population created by God, begins, and they can diversify outwards into this region of this three-dimensional space where there are traits that they can gain. In their view, the potentiality regions of different kinds are separated from one another, such that as each kind diversifies, they cannot...
Yeah, but that's not evident. There's no membrane between them. That you overlap, but you want to put, or that you can overlap with traits, but there's no divisive membrane between these groups. You would need to demonstrate that. This is based strictly off of homologies and synapomorphies, and what we might call analogies between two unrelated groups as well can overlap. So without more data regarding the evolutionary development of these organisms, you're not able to to accurately track the diversification, the changes taking place. You're just looking at two diversified clades isolated from one another, slapping a non-evident membrane between them as far as their relatedness, and basing this whole thing on synapomorphies with no... And I'm not saying that, because you were just giving a visual example. I'm not saying that you're presenting this as, hey, look at this proves it, because you just gave an example with no figures. So, but which is fine. You're just showing us how it looks. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just inferring these differences. But we'll let Peter give it a go.
Not grow into one another such that they would have this exact same traits or interbreed with one another. The kinds remain separate from one another. And I don't think that there may actually be a hard boundary stopping the created kinds from growing into one another as they diversify. Rather, I think that this may just be the rarity of convergent evolution. That is, once you have these two populations, it is very, very unlikely that they would actually get the exact same character traits as one another. And so
well, because convergence means that it's not the same genes, at least not the same genes expressing the same way that causes the same function. That's convergence. A different population. Yeah. different populations have different characteristics, right? That get expressed in their. Yeah, anyway.
We have this idea that there are different groups of organisms that represent and fall into different areas of biological character space.
So yeah, they differentiate, but they can also converge on characteristics. But when it's convergent, we can look at the genetics of it and see that it's not homologous, but analogous with the features of the other organism. Let me take a look at like something like the raptorial arms of a praying mantis being convergent with the raptorial pedipalps of an ambly pigeon, which are the whip spiders, or the tailless whip scorpions with the long arms. They're not even emerged from the same part of the body. It's with ambly pigeons as a pedipalp, with mantises it's the forelimbs. But the genes that create raptorial arms are the same genes expressed in a different way through a process that caused arachnids to wrap their leg segment. Arthropods' bodies are segmented, but to take those leg segments and bring them up around the front of the cephalothorax, the head. So same type of genes are causing these raptorial spiky arms to grow, but in one group they're growing out of a segment on the face called a pedipalp, and in another group these genes are expressing in the forearms, right? Is that convergent, or is it homology? Because it's the same genes, but they're expressing through different parts of the body. Yeah. Convergence is fine.
Now, there's different ways that we can kind of actually try to look at this theoretical concept and see if the scientific data that we have lines up with this way in which we envision the created kinds. And one of those is through statistical baraminology. So what we can do is we can get these character matrices that
statistical baraminology, that sounds fun.
Have all of these lists of these different types of characters, and we can analyze them using statistics to look at how similar organisms are to one another. And based on this model, what we would predict is that organisms are going to appear in clusters. There's going to be a whole cluster of organisms within a created kind, but they're going to be separate from other kinds. That it would be that there are all of these separate individual clusters. And this space between them we would call discontinuity. These different kinds are morphologically discontinuous with each other.
But that does not mean that they are discontinuous in their relation to one another, because one group of organisms stopped or lost the expression of a certain physiological characteristic in the gene pool does not mean that they are no longer related to each other. So that's what we call a ghost lineage, where there is a gap in the fossil record of when this group lost a certain characteristic or suite of characteristics from their genes that was not recorded in the fossil record. Usually because fossils, are rare and only occur in select circumstances. So changes within a population, especially driven by extinction events, tend to wipe out intermediate changes like that. You can sometimes see it, but not always.
And we would say that the organisms within these created kinds, these little clusters, are continuous with each other. They form this little region where they are all sharing many, many traits with one another. This here is a distance correlation graph, and it's one of the ways in which we can visualize this continuity and discontinuity. The black squares here represent significant continuity. That is, organisms are very similar. And
so what they're calling continuity would be chronological homologies. So that's the continuity, where you can find homologies within a clade to link them all together and classify them together. But the non-continuities that he's talking about do not, it's just kind of an absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, because there's not an individual fossil that shows the loss of a certain or the gain of a certain genetic feature, whether it's physiological or morphological, just subtle changes that we again draw our arbitrary lines around and say this is a separate group or a separate clade. That does not in any way infer that that there's nothing that goes in those blanks. It's just that we don't have what goes in those blanks.
The circles that are clear indicate significant discontinuity. So when you come to a point where two species are being compared, if there's a square, it means they're very similar. A circle means they're very dissimilar. And what we can see is we have three main groups that fall out here. You can see these arrows that I've added point to the place where Saxonella naylori is compared to itself on the graph. And as you can see, there is a black square there, because it turns out when you compare Saxonella naylori to Saxonella naylori, it's exactly identical. There's significant correlation there. And that is what basically that whole diagonal line going up the center of the graph is. It's where you compare each species to itself. Of course, they're going to be identical, and so there's a black square there. But what's more interesting is how you see these separate groups, right? Lots of those species...
And these are early primates too, so pretty neat.
These on the left-hand side of the graph are very similar to one another, and they form kind of a block. And then there's another block right above that where many species correlate positively with each other as well. This is another way of visualizing this character space. What we see here is a multi-dimensional scaling plot. So earlier we talked about biological character space where each of these traits comes up with a new dimension. But the problem is we can't actually look at things in more than 3 dimensions. Well, it's very hard to go beyond that. So what this tries to do is take those many dimensional coordinates and turn them into 3-dimensional coordinates without changing the way in which they would be seen as little as possible, and then plotting them within a 3-dimensional space so that we can see where these taxa are relative to one another, and we can try to look at different clusterings of taxa to try to understand how similar these organisms are to one another and whether they fall into groups as we would expect or not.
And this is just, I mean, mostly this part I'm in full agreement with him. He's just explaining how to read these, so I'm just going to let him talk, because Pete's a smart kid, or guy. I don't call him a kid. He's an adult. He's a grown man. He's a smart guy. So I'm not gonna say everything he says is dumb and wrong. There hasn't been just some of the categories and things like that I disagree with. He's creating, or that they're creating, because I don't think these are his original works, but. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to let him keep going here because he's about to wrap up.
This is the medoid partitioning silhouette plot, and it helps us understand this continuity and discontinuity as well. What this does is it basically tries to evaluate how well these different organisms fit within the clusters that they fall. So you can actually specify with this type of plot how many different clusters you want the taxa to fit into. And you will see that if you would try to force all of these in taxa here into like 2 clusters, it wouldn't work very well. Whereas when you fit them into 3 clusters, they actually fit very well. And you can see down here at the bottom a silhouette width, which is a measure of how well these taxa group together into a cluster. So from an evolutionary perspective, where all life is related, what we should see is that all organisms are continuous with one another. There's a morphological continuum between every type of organism. But that's not what we see, and that's not what creationism would predict.
Because, so, again, I've talked about this and not I'm on this channel, but I'm going to bring it up here because it's important to this topic. So, this is what we call niche partitioning. If an organism is successful in a niche, and that niche is stable, and they are able to hold out in that niche through major catastrophes and extinction events, they will hold that niche indefinitely. That's why arthropods are exclusively on the micro scale. Nothing competes with an arthropod. They're so perfected to that because they've been doing it for 500 plus million years. They're really good at it. So no one is going to bump them from that niche. It would take a global level extinction event to push arthropods out of the niche of dominating the microcosm, right? It would for something like a tetrapod like us, like a one of our ancestors or descendants of the fish that crawled out of the ocean with 4 legs, etc. They could not push in and remove the arthropods from that ecological niche. That's not always the case, though, especially the more specialized a niche is. A niche like large browser, which things like elephants, giraffes, moose, really big animals that browse for foliage, mostly higher up foliage in the trees and things like that. Yeah, those groups are very susceptible to definitely to major extinction events, but even minor extinction events can wipe out entire clades. Look at like the Calicothere. They just wiped out in a localized extinction event because of ecological shifts in their environment, where the forest died back and plains became more prominent. So hooved animals dominated the area and kind of pushed them to extinction because they didn't have anywhere to go, right? Yeah, gestures at crocodiles. You get it, right? Absolutely. And when these niches, when these more specialized niches get wiped out by whatever event, localized or global, when the dust settles, new groups will move into that niche and start to adapt to survive better in that niche. So groups from these less specialized areas will move into the more specialized roles that still need, an organisms to fill them to keep the ecology in balance. And it takes, sometimes thousands to millions of years for everything to get back in balance again after an event like this. But that's called punctuated equilibrium, where we have something changes in the ecology. The old clades that filled these niches were wiped out or moved out or died out or migrated out, whatever happened, and the new clades of organisms moved in and replaced them in that role in the environment, and started to adapt to specialize into whatever that role was. We call that punctuated equilibrium. That means they hurry up and change to this opening, and then they stay there and they squat there as long as possible. Don't change for millions of years, sometimes tens of millions of years. There's some lineages that haven't changed much over hundreds of millions of years. So, and they have changed. Don't get me wrong. Don't say, oh, they haven't changed. These are living fossils. No, they have changed, but they haven't changed much in their basic role in the ecology and what they do, because they're really efficient at it. Again, I point back to arthropods. Nobody's going to usurp them because they are the kings of the microcosm.
A creation model would predict that there are instead clusters of organisms that represent separate created kinds. Now, this video has barely scratched the surface, and I haven't even gone into a lot of the objections, which some skeptics will have. That's something that I'll hopefully get into more in the future, and I have a lot of notes here that I would really like to cover at some point. But I hope this has given you at least a general basic idea of what a kind is, how creationists think about them, and how we can detect them. So thank you for watching.
All right, so I don't know. I didn't. So what he's saying is that it's fair enough that we think that kinds are these clusters on these charts when we map out homologies. We think that these clusters represent kinds, but we're not sure. Okay, but I do end up coming away from this with more questions than answers, like because now I don't just, because explaining what a kind is part of that cluster. Then what's a sort and what's a type, because both of those classes within were brought up, and I think it's relevant to the conversation that we understand what they are too. So I noticed you said that you were going to start answering questions from skeptics, so the questions I raised on this video. Let's see if we can't tackle some of those. So I do have a list for you of questions, and if you all think of anything I missed, speak up, and I'm going to present this to Peter. Okay, so to Pete. I'm sorry, I keep calling him Peter. I'm so used to calling him Peter because everybody told me, oh, it's Peter. So he wants to go by Pete. I'm going to call him Pete, and I'm sorry I keep calling you Peter, but I digress. So, hey Wes, good to see you. Peter, as far as what is a kind, or what is a created kind, and you're saying that it's these clusters, there was the baraminology graph that we see, the standard one, you know, the Orchard of Life graph that lists birds and like dinosaurs and stuff as separate kinds, and then they diversify, and the flood comes along and it stems it back down to just one kind. So I know that can't be true because there were at least two named kinds of birds on the ark. There was a dove and a raven, so we know that birds are not a kind in and of themselves, right? So birds aren't a kind, and then that would say birds are a sort. And what is a sort, and how do we define a sort? Are we claiming that sorts were like, oh, this is a similar or common designer, and what features how do we differentiate between what's a common designer and what's a common ancestor? I don't feel like we got that here, other than saying, hey, there are these characteristics that cluster together, and I'm with you there 100%. We can build spectrums like that on homologies. That's not a problem, but it doesn't necessarily, without you would need to do a suite of homologies and then cross-reference those together to build an accurate model. But anyhow, that was my chair, not me. Anyway, that was CreationWatch for today. We had good old Paleologos. This is the first time that I've covered Pete, and I hope Pete responds to this. That'd be fun to get a good back and forth with Pete about what is a created kind, because I think we could have some wonderful back and forth, some wonderful conversations about it. Now let's see here. So we had CreationWatch with our friend Pete, and we had American Hyenas for CryptoCorner. I got one more segment that we'd like to do, and I will get to that in just a minute. I will see you over there at HiveScience. All right, hello, and welcome to HiveScience, where we explore the scientific world and how it changes our views of reality, or opens our eyes to the possibility of things in this world. All right. And today I have an ecology topic. That's my favorite. I'm a big ecology nerd, so I didn't want to leave you guys out on this because it's really cool. So when we talk about ecology, there was always the idea of the food web. People are like, what? No. Really only, because it used to be, linear, the bugs eat the grass, the bird eats the bugs, the cat eats the bird, poops in the litter box, what, I don't know, and it fertilizes the grass, whatever. You know what I mean. So all animals have responsibilities. It's not a concept unique to human. Yeah. Okay. The role that we play in our respective niche. But it's weird when you think of something that can be. It seems like it'd be unrelated, right? Like, why would this correlation link? Sometimes correlation does not mean causation, but I think in this case that we can pretty well firmly directly make the correlation because of the research projects that's been done and how we understand this is happening. So do you want to know how invasive rats would negatively impact reef fish? Let's find out. Okay. Invasive rats are changing how reef fish behave. It's because there's not enough bird poop. Jewel damselfish living on coral reefs surrounding rat-infested tropical islands have become less territorial and less aggressive due to a bizarre ecological link between the two species. Bird poop. It's no secret that invasive rats cause widespread and long-lasting damage to tropical island ecosystems. Not just tropical islands, any island ecosystem. But now a new finding reveals that the invasive rodents' impact may extend even further than the land on which they scamper. These ravenous critters can also disrupt the surrounding marine ecosystem. In the Indian Ocean, invasive island rats have altered the behavior of tiny farming fish known as jewel damselfish. We're going to try it. Microspathodon chrysurus. Okay, so we'll just break that down. Micro, small. I don't know what spath means. So don means teeth. Small teeth. Spath. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. And chrysurus, I believe cry, the CHRYS like that means like chromatic, like it's colorful. So I think that's what we're looking at there. So it's like colorful. It's tiny teeth, fish with tiny specialized teeth. I don't know if they're specialized for, but fish with tiny specialized specialized teeth that are exceptionally colorful, that live on coral reefs located miles offshore. And yes, I like breaking down binomial nomenclature, so you'll have to forgive me. A new study shows affected damselfish have become much more docile than normal due to the weird link between the fish and the rats. Bird poop. Jeweled damselfish are normally highly territorial fish that aggressively defend and cultivate small patches of algae that grow on corals surrounding tropical islands. The plants, the plant patches are greatly desired by the damselfish because the algae are highly nutritious, thanks largely to the nutrients that run off from the island. One main source of island-derived nutrients is poop or guano, excreted by seabirds that nest on the island, which they get washed into the ocean. Yes. However, invasive rats, which were historically introduced to the islands after stowing away on ships, are known to decimate bird populations on their new homes by sneaking into nests and feeding on unhatched eggs. This can cause seabird densities to decrease by up to 720 times on rat-infested islands, which can decrease the nutrients in the surrounding water by up to 251 times. The study authors explained in a statement, as a result, the damselfish's algae patches have become less nutritious, which means the feisty farmers are less inclined to defend them. In the new study published on January 5th in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, researchers compared the damselfish behavior on coral reefs surrounding 5 rat-free islands and 5 rat-infested islands in a remote archipelago in the Indian Ocean. The team found that damselfish surrounding rat-infested islands had larger territories, measuring an average of 6.7 square feet or 0.62 square meters, compared to the average of 5.2 square feet or 0.48 square meters on rat-free islands. The larger territories are a sign that the fish is becoming less territorial over specific patches, the researchers said. The team also observed that the fish were up to 5 times less likely to act aggressively towards one another. Jeweled damselfish around rat-free islands fiercely defend their patch of algae turf because it's packed with nutrients, which means the fish gets more for their money by using energy to defend it, said the study co-author Rachel Gunn, a behavioral ecologist at Tübingen University in Germany and former doctoral student at Lancaster University in the UK at the time of the study. We believe that the presence of rats is lowering the nutritional benefit of the turf to the extent that it's almost not worth fighting for, which is what we are observing with the behavioral change. The researchers think that the change in the damselfish behavior is likely to have further knockoff effects on the coral reef's ecosystem, which have not been properly studied. The algae farming of the damselfish affects the balance of the corals and algae on the reef, Gunn said. Their aggressions towards other fish can also influence the way the fish move around and use the reef. The decrease in the available nutrients in the water could also have implications for other algae eaters, as well as for filter feeding organisms such as sponges, which could in turn affect the food chain across the reef, the researchers warned. The ecosystems evolve a delicate balance over long time scales, so any disruption could have knock-on consequences. I'm going to have to look that up. Knock-on consequences is a term I learned today. Consequences for the wider ecosystem, Gunn said. The team believes the new findings show how important it is to control or completely kill off invasive rat populations where possible. Rat eradication has the potential to have multiple cross-ecosystem benefits, Gunn said. The removal of rats from tropical islands would likely restore the territorial behavior of the jeweled damsel fish and provide other benefits to the rest of the coral reef, she added. This was written by Harry Baker, staff writer at HiveScience. Looks like he is a grad student. Oh, he graduated. Yeah, he's got a blog called Marine Madness if you want to check that out. Yeah, so cool. that was just a little ecology for your palates there. Invasive rats are changing how these fish act regarding their little territories. So fertilizer's always been important in farming, regardless of whether it's humans farming or other creatures farming. Yeah, and rats. The rats won't poop on the beach like the birds do. The rats go inland. They don't come on the reach out of the beach to scavenge. If they go inland, away from the surf, to spend most of the time to live and eat. So yeah, they would defecate a little bit into the surf, but I don't imagine, like Ring said, that it'd be as nutritious, but it definitely wouldn't be as much. So that's the main takeaway. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today and live from the Hive. I hope you all come back next week. If you missed any of the segments, they do premiere on, well, this segment doesn't, the Hive side doesn't. The Hive side just releases on Mondays. There's no premiere, usually because they're kind of short. But CreationWatch will premiere on Wednesday. On Wednesdays, I think we're running about, right now we're running about 8 weeks behind the live from the Hive. So that's just the way I cycle through mine. I'm trying to get it down. I would prefer if we'd keep it at four weeks behind, but I'll have to do like a block drop of them at some point in order to get things back on track. That's how I had it before. What was it? Before I lost my computer and stuff. So yeah, my original PC. I got a new PC now. That's awesome, thanks to my anonymous benefactor. But yeah, so I want to get back down to where the live runs about 3 to 4 weeks before the premiere, just because I don't like my premieres being so far out that maybe the topic's not even relevant anymore. And that's been kind of how I feel about some of them, especially when it comes to CreationWatch. So CreationWatch Wednesday, 8 p.m. Don't miss it. What's our next one on the schedule? Let me check here real quick. For our next CreationWatch, it's going to be next Wednesday. Oh, gotta go back to the beginning. All right, we're doing this. Going to be the angels from In Time Production. The truth about angels. I hear that they were super sexy. I think that's what we get. And they were white people. Angels are like white people, and they're sexy white people. And then, if you missed it last night, we had our one part of our 3-part saga covering the Time to Wait series on Twitter. The Time to Wait series is a series about a woman experiencing, starts off as poltergeist-like activity and noises, but it escalates into sort of more of a like Skinwalker Ranch style phenomena happening to her, and has a twist ending that comes around at the very end. So stick around for that. We got that next Friday on CryptoCorner, and then the conclusion will be on January 27th, completing the Time to Wait saga. So I hope to see you all there. After that, we'll get back into the regular rotation of CryptoCorner. And we do have the the Garden of Eden video coming up as well. So all good stuff on the agenda from the Hive coming up in the first quarter of the new year. What else do we got? Yeah, we'll revisit the Machine Elves. We're gonna have Crystal Skulls. It's gonna be a wild ride. We're gonna look at tombs on Mars. We got Preacher Tom talking about fossils. It's gonna get wild up in here. So if you missed any of those live, they are coming up as just those segments and premieres. CryptoCorner Friday nights at 8. CreationWatch Wednesday nights at 8. A new HiveScience drops at 6 on Mondays. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, my beauties and bees. Remember to be kind and take care. And we'll see you next time.